Rich Stover, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. You are, and I'm going to get this one right, so help me God, the administrator of the office, governor's office of energy and minerals.
Energy and mineral resources.
Mineral resources. Fantastic.
Close enough. Yeah. OEMR.
OEMR. All right. I was actually just talking with Congressman Fulcher today, and we were discussing not just power, but the resources in Idaho that are going to some degree untapped. Like we are really a resource-rich state in the United States. Now, we all care about resources in the abstract. We need like semiconductors and cobalt, things of that nature. But we really, 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 really care about energy because in my former state, we had a lot of problems with a secure energy grid, and we paid an exorbitant amount of money, which, we had 2 rounds of solar panels and Tesla Powerwall backup batteries, and we still paid like a huge amount of money on a monthly basis. And they didn't even work when the power went out. I was like, how is this possible? Energy is really important. As such, there has been established a speed council that's supposed to streamline the bureaucratic red tape and essentially make it easier for us to review, take public input, and essentially get energy projects underway, which is part of the all of the above initiative that I believe Governor Little has kind of put in place, which is, listen, whatever you want. You want coal, you want wind, you want solar, you want hydro, you want nuclear. Like, let's look at all of it and figure it out. And all of these have problems. There's not a single one that's like, oh, perfect, the perfect energy source that nobody cares about. Like, awesome. So they all have problems, but we need energy. So walk me through the problems that exist today and why this speed council was initiated.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We've got the benefit of a natural resource-based energy profile that we've relied on for a long time. Idaho's been a leader in the nation in energy affordability and reliability for a long time. But we're facing, as the president noted, a national energy emergency. The amount of energy that we need to bring online, not just in Idaho, but in the Northwest and the Western Interconnection, is staggering. And that takes permitting. And I'm not just talking about energy as well. Like this concept will cover other components, but specific to energy, we need a staggering amount of energy, and we need it at times that are not reflective of what the current permitting process is. So.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt. When you say not reflective of what the current permitting, so you're saying the current permitting process may take like 2 or 3 years, but we don't need energy in 2 or 3 years. We need it today or like next week.
Yeah, I mean a little bit longer time frame
sure,
than that. Like
sure.
For example, a recent transmission line that we're aware of here in Idaho is gone through the permitting process for about 20 years. So what we're talking about is bringing massive amounts of energy generation online within the next 10 years, and it takes too long to get permits to get that generation to the load. So consistent with the governor's longstanding practice of cutting regulatory red tape, we have with the governor's vision, we're setting up a speed council, the strategic permitting and efficiency and economic development council. The purpose of which is to address some particular problems that we're facing. Number one is to take the opportunity to look for opportunities to reform permitting, to make it streamlined and to make it more efficient. But the other thing we've heard from a lot of folks is the issue of transparency. People have said, we didn't know about a project. We didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on a project. And so...
and if I may, that was really one of the great problems with the Lava Ridge energy program. Like, there were a lot of problems with it, specifically that Idahoans overwhelmingly, unanimously did not want it, all the way down from the local citizen to, elected representatives, everybody. So everybody was saying, no, don't do this. That's a problem. It was going to derail other localized businesses like ranchers and whatnot. And the power wasn't even going to Idaho. It was going to benefit California and other states. So the bottom line is you had this problem where people were putting this input in and nobody was listening. So even in the case of Lava Ridge, it's like the input was coming and nobody cared, right? The Bureau of Land Management was kind of like, hey, I hear that you don't like it. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, just back the truck up right here, dump it out, right?
Yeah.
They were going for it.
Yeah. Well, what we heard from everybody is that they didn't know about it, and then when they were given the opportunity to submit their input, it wasn't considered. And so And we want to address that. The governor wants to cut red tape. He wants to get out of the way of business. But if we're going to regulate industries, whether it's energy, whether it's mining, whatever it is,
Sure.
that's got to be done in a transparent manner, and it's got to be done in an accessible manner that brings the stakeholders to the table. So that's the purpose of this Speed Council, is to streamline permitting on particular projects and do that in a way that is accessible to everybody and it's transparent.
Now, when you say we need more power, and you guys are trying to bring more power on like really fast, what are we talking about? Like, what? I understand that, for instance, Idaho Power's rates are going up year on year, and I think it's like an 8% increase or something. I'm not 100% sure. But what do you got? Are you looking to increase the power availability so those increases come at a lower rate, or that they stop, or like what is the whole goal of like, okay, we need all of this power?
Yeah, well, so the state policy on energy is to continue to be a leader in reliable, affordable, and sustainable power and innovative solutions that responsibly enhance the economy and benefit the state citizens. So, my agency is not a regulatory agency, so what we're looking for is opportunities to cut costs, to make it affordable for power to be delivered to the people. And the regulated utilities are required to go through the regulatory process to serve people in their service territory, and to do that at the lowest rate. We're just looking for opportunities to make sure that they can facilitate that.
You know what? I apologize. I realize in what you were just saying, your goal in this is to say, hey, we are a more favorable regulatory process that attracts businesses that are like, I think I could make like a solar farm over there and bring the power to Idaho to incentivize essentially industry, and just like, look, we're doing everything we can to get you to come sit at the table and engage in this. It's not going to take as long as it used to. We're not going to make you jump through as many hoops as we used to. You're going to have to deliver a safe, valuable product, but we're just going to try to make it easier to do business in the state of Idaho.
Yeah. I mean, the regulatory environment is always in Idaho, and especially under Governor Little's administration, is to try to make the regulatory environment business friendly. When it comes to the Speed Council, the purpose is to continue to look for opportunities to cut red tape, make efficiencies in the permitting process. And mining is a great example of this. It's not just energy. Mining implicates a number of state permits, and they're complicated, like they should be. As you mentioned early on, the United States has environmental laws that other nations don't. So we want to make sure that we are addressing Idaho issues in a timely fashion. And so what we do is with this particular thing is it's not a rubber stamp at all. And in fact, what it is intended to get the right players around the table at the same time, so that we can hear inputs from the stakeholders, from the proponents, from the regulatory agencies, and make sure that they're addressed, and they're done so in an efficient manner that's transparent.
And that's one of the things that you hit on, which is, hey, look, we have an environmental responsibility, right? To you can't open a mine, start a mine, and just like dump all kinds of toxic stuff. And I don't know anything about mining, but people are like, oh, it ruined rivers or whatever it might be. I know there are chemicals involved. Fine, understood. And if businesses don't engage us, they engage other places, like overseas or other places that are not as responsible towards the environment. So it sounds like the idea is like, listen, we're not throwing away our environmental regulations. We're going to keep the regulations in place and hopefully be able to incentivize businesses to engage in business here and make it streamlined enough that it's in their best interest. They're like, look, we would like you to be doing the cobalt mining here and in a clean, effective way, so that we don't have to necessarily get cobalt from like some, strip mine that engages in terrible labor practices or things of that nature, right? Like, we'd rather source our energy and our minerals locally so that we can have control over, at the very least, some level of environmental responsibility.
Yeah, it's essential that the United States exercises some control over critical minerals. The bulk of them are supplied and controlled by China and Russia right now, and they've taken steps lock that down. And so we need to reduce our dependence on those adversarial nations. And we have opportunities here in Idaho and in the West to take advantage of the resources that we have. I mean, the state is a natural resource state. It's founded on natural resources. We rely upon them. So, and we've got the protections in place. So, with all of those benefits in mind, and the fact that we don't take advantage of the lack of environmental protections, we're in a good position to use our continued effort to streamline permitting to get projects online. And again, none of this will cut corners. This council does not have any authority to sidestep the law. It is really a convening of the proper the proper regulatory agencies, as well as the proponents and the locally affected people, to make sure that when a project triggers the things that it needs to trigger to get into the program, that it is worked through the system in a way that it is efficient, so that they're not duplicating efforts from agency to agency. And the local folks and the proponents are all aware of what's going on and have the opportunity to be engaged in it.
When you talk about foreign adversarial governments locking down the resource supply, what is that like? What steps have they taken to make it more difficult for us to access this independently?
Yeah, I mean, antimony is an obvious example.
Of course, antimony.
Antimony.
I don't know what you're saying. Is that English?
Sure. Antimony is a mineral that goes into a bunch of things, but relevant for our purposes is that the military relies on it for munitions.
Got it.
And the bulk of it comes from Russia and China. And most recently, China has said they are going to cease exporting antimony. So the United States, who relies on antimony to provide
like bullets.
Yeah,
essentially.
I'm not exactly sure which munitions, but
something.
The military needs them.
Got it.
And we're relying on countries like China and Russia to supply those things. The materials that are in the phone, that are in your phones, the materials that are in your car, those come from critical minerals, the bulk of which are controlled by China, Russia, and other countries that we are not. That we don't have warm, fuzzy relationships with. Okay,
so everyone over the last 5 years learned what the supply chain was, right? Which is, we're just wandering around. Like I was wandering around just living my life, like no, trying to drink more coffee, and realize like, oh snap, like we rely on all of these other people just to operate in a normal bit. Like anybody who tried to get a rental car or like buy a car just got hammered really hard with the shortage of materials and, like semiconductors and microchips and all of those things that led to this huge shortage. So this ultimate streamlining process is likely, at least in part, a response to, okay, everybody started talking about independence from foreign supply chain issues, or at least reducing the reliance on other critical supply chain, either providers or systems. So this is like, okay, look, Idaho, you want to get caught flat-footed again when like we have a supply chain disruption? No, you don't? Well, then we need to do something to change the way people do business throughout the world and supply other things locally. And this is ultimately a piece of let's fix our supply chain dependence on other countries that don't necessarily wish us well, or other countries that apparently have some, like our defense bottlenecks, is around them. But like, guys, like we don't want a global supply chain breakdown again, especially one that has to do with military and defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just
getting to the table. I'm just getting to the party. Like, okay, great. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's not just energy, like it's chips. It is critical minerals that go into everything that we use. And we have the opportunity here to source those. And in fact, the president has made it made it a priority. Like we need independent energy future, and we need to make sure that we have control of our critical minerals that we require to function as a society.
Okay, so we have antimony here.
We do.
Okay, what else? Like, what other cool things do we have here?
Well, cobalt is at
the Jervois mine.
Jervois. Yeah.
Jervois. Yeah. What is with the French companies? Yeah. Like there's the other one that owns the water in Eagle. Like it's a French company. It's like,
Veolia.
Yeah. Like anyway, okay.
I don't know. It rolls off the tongue, I guess.
Yeah, I was just talking to Bobby Joe with the Boise Metro, and I was like, "Do you know anybody in Boise that does pate?" She's like, "I do not know, but I will find out." There's like, I don't know, they got some good things with food. Anyway, so we have cobalt, right? We have antimony. What else?
Well, I mean, we've got mineral. We've got minerals like copper. Copper critically important to energy infrastructure.
Yes,
that's what the wires are that carry the electrons that go from the generation to power your phone. And we've got obviously like gold and silver, and there's a variety of other things, but those are the main ones that I am regularly interacting with.
Gotcha. So the bottom line with this is like, look, if we look at the broader picture, because I think a lot of people get hung up on like a specific site or they're, again, with other projects that, have now been stopped or at least stalled. Mm-hmm. There was this anxiety with like, what about local, inputs? And, I don't think anybody likes the idea of anything different happening in their backyard. Like, I don't know anybody who's like, change my backyard in any possible way, right? We don't like it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if we look at the broader large scale picture over the next 50 years, like if today is day one in a 50-year timeline, then you would want to know at the end of 50 years, it's like, oh, we started moving on day one so that the crisis that happened at year 37, that crisis was able to be managed and dealt with because of what we did on day one, year one, right? But if we don't, that broad 50-year timeline, sometime over the next 50 years or potentially much sooner, there will be another significant disruption. And if we do not start working in this long-term revision process to attract industry, we will get hammered and, again, be in a very tough situation.
Yeah, it's better to be prepared than to be reactionary. And that's what we're doing. We have resources that can help us be independent and help us grow our economy. And we have the responsibility to responsibly develop those things in a manner that the public can see and know where it's coming from, know where their materials are coming from, have the opportunity to weigh in.
You're involved in the energy sector, obviously, as in this office. There is like a real hatred for solar. And I have not been able to figure out why. Like, it doesn't matter to me, right? Like, I had solar panels before, I don't have them now. But if you even mention solar, people like their cackles go up there. It's like, what did solar do somebody wrong in the state? Like, what is that reluctance? Because we like other energy. I wouldn't say like, but everybody has a problem with some type of energy, be it hydro with dams or reservoirs, whatever it is. But what is it about solar that people get so wiggy about?
Yeah, I think people dislike all forms of energy, and they also think all forms of energy are the silver bullet. The answer is there is no silver bullet when it comes to energy. They all have their shortcomings. They all have their benefits. Now, when it comes to solar, in particular, the pushback that I hear most frequently, and it depends on whether you're talking about utility scale solar or whether you're talking about rooftop solar. But let's talk about utility scale solar, because that's really kind of the world that I live in. Utility scale solar implicates issues of multiple use on public lands, and these are the issues that I see that bubble up a lot. Utility scale projects are very oftentimes looking to go on public land. So we cherish multiple uses on public land here in Idaho. Sure. It's part of who we are. We all recreate out there, and we rely on these public lands. And we have a significant portion of our economy based on the ability to use these lands and to use them for a bunch of different ways. So when you get certain particular projects that jeopardize the opportunity for multiple uses on these public lands, then you're going to get pushback. And what you will see when it comes to solar, for example, is they are often proposed in areas where there is significant agricultural investments, grazing allotments where people have made their livelihoods and raised families for generations. And, those solar panels they're large and they are in the ground for a long period of time. And so they occupy a portion of land that people would typically graze on. Right. Or recreate on. And so, it is they implicate issues, certainly implicate issues of multiple use.
Gotcha. Because you're going to stop enterprise and you're going to stop recreation. And, we have a lot of we have a lot of species that are much beloved that rely on ground-based like ecosystems, like sagebrush and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, there's the potential to disrupt what we're used to.
Sure. I think most people know about hydro. It's like, look, we need water that's going to spin turbines. Most people know about solar, and solar can be literally mirrors heating up things for combustion cycles or heat cycles, or they can be solar panels. Nuclear, people understand that you need water. You're going to boil water with like these radioactive rods and like really long pencils. Okay, great. Coal, right? Obviously, we're going to burn stuff. But I was talking with, again, Congressman Fulcher this morning, and he brought up geothermal. I was like, listen, Boise or the area around here has like the biggest geothermal, like groundbreaking geothermal tech. Like, I did not know that. What is geothermal one of those things on the table where it's like, and by the way, like, how does that work? Do we find some kind of heat source under the ground and then run a combustion cycle with that?
Yeah, so geothermal is one of these energy sources that we're looking at in terms of future opportunities. Again, it's a natural resource-based energy resource that we have here in the state of Idaho, and we've got a great resource for it.
Do we? What is a great resource? Like, I don't see any. Like, do we have bubbling cauldrons of lava somewhere?
This building that we're in right now might be heated with geothermal water. So I think there's 4 geothermal heating systems in the city of Boise that operate where they pull hot water up off out of the ground, and it is circulated around to heat buildings. And there's a couple of different ways to utilize, depending on how hot the geothermal resource is. Like, it's a heating source, which is energy. And then if it hits a particular temperature, you can actually spin a turbine and generate electrons to put on the grid. But it's it's certainly an up and coming resource that we anticipate will launch some efforts into studying the potential of geothermal in Idaho.
Because that seems like the holy grail. Like, wait a minute. We don't have to cover the land. Nobody sees like emissions. Nobody has emissions. We don't have to dam anything up. All you got to do is drill down, run a pipe. Trust me. Drill down, run a pipe, and get ready. Put a cork in that bad boy, because like a lot of hot stuff's going to come out. Like, that sounds fantastic. Like, nobody's upset about it. It's not creating emissions. It's not, killing migrating birds. Like, this seems like one of the silver bullets for energy production.
Yeah, well, remember, there are no silver bullets. Everything has its pros and cons.
But come on, work with me here.
Well, go ask some water users in eastern Idaho whether they're comfortable with drilling into the aquifer.
Yeah, so, you got me there.
And like a lot of these emerging technologies, whether it's nuclear or whether 10, 20 years ago it was batteries or solar, there's a price point issue. For a utility to offer that service, they are required to do it at least cost, essentially. And so you have to develop the technologies to make the geothermal resource economically viable. Now, like with any of these things that we're any of these technologies that we're tracking, it's trending in the right direction. We have a geothermal power plant here in Idaho right now, and out in the Raft River area. And other states have them, like Nevada has got a lot of geothermal resources on in their energy profile. It is certainly one we can take advantage of. It is. It's reliable,
gotcha, consistent,
and one thing that's really unique and important, and that is a benefit for the geothermal, is its footprint. Of all these different resources I mentioned, they all have their pros and their cons. Geothermal takes a smaller footprint than a solar farm, which is smaller than a wind farm, and then obviously there's hydropower plants, what they are, and then nuclear power plants. But geothermal has a smaller footprint. So to the extent that those get sited eventually on public land, it will be, less of an impact. At least to the top of the land. They're still working through issues on the water issues.
Yeah, subterranean stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. Senator Rich, you brought up footprint, and he is a huge proponent of of nuclear power. At least that's what he was articulating when he was, sitting down with me and saying, like, look, we can have these micro plants now that are not these gigantic like behemoths like you see in like The Simpsons, right? With like the gigantic cooling towers and stuff. And he said the footprint is really, really minimal. Like you could grab a 40-acre plot and have, a nuclear power plant. And again, I know we're here talking about, look, I'm just trying to streamline the regulatory process, but are there interested parties in like, hey, you streamline this the right way, or you work with us? Cause like we are in the business of doing these like, pocket nuclear reactors. We'd love to engage in power production in Idaho.
Sure. So nuclear reactors, they are regulated by the federal government. They have primacy over that. Where the state regulatory process couldn't get involved is if one of these reactors were to be sited on public lands, whether they would need specific permits from the state of Idaho.
Gotcha.
But the senator's absolutely right in terms of the possible promise that these reactors have a small footprint. And I don't know that we'll see. I mean, there was recently one of those big behemoth plants brought online in Georgia a few years ago. The future seems to be trending more towards the smaller ones that are often likened to batteries, where you can have one, and if you need more power, you can plug the next one in. But certainly much smaller footprint. In theory, they're in the process of trying to get those to market right now.
I have a question for you that might be too technical about nuclear.
Okay.
But Senator Rich was talking about, and he's like, look, we have nuclear, carriers, aircraft carriers. He was like, for the, our military has nuclear sea vessels that go out and
submarines and
exactly. And they can run pretty much indefinitely. He's like, well, look, if you can put it on a ship, you could put it like on a trailer. And thinking through it, I was like, yeah, okay, that makes like whatever the reactor is. But one of the problems with nuclear, and one of the reasons we see these gigantic cooling towers, is because you need a source of water to constantly run through, because you're essentially running turbines by superheating water, bringing it back to, making it steam, then bringing it back to running the whole system, right?
Yeah.
And one of the problems then is like, okay, well, where do you get that water? So like, that's why in the large behemoths, you have generally like cooling ponds and stuff around them and gigantic cooling towers and things of that nature. So is one of the problems with the smaller footprints, it's like, yeah, we could get the physical mechanism here, but if you're a nuclear submarine or you're a nuclear aircraft carrier, you have the entire ocean to cool off your reactor. Like you have an infinite source of cold water whenever you want it, all day, every day. And if we brought something to like the middle of Jerome, just theoretically, like you don't have an infinite source of water all day, every day. So you have to figure out a way to get enough cool water supplied at a regular clip so that you never have any problems. Is that like kind of the struggle?
Well, so for one of the advanced nuclear technologies is a water cooled, like a traditional small scaled down version. So if you go with that technology, then water will be involved. But again, if you're scaling it down, you would need less water. But there are other nuclear technologies that they're looking at in terms of cooling, like with metals, with liquid metals or salts. So different technologies. And I'm not a physicist.
You're not a nuclear physicist.
I'm not. In my free time, that's not where I spend my time. But I'm aware that these technologies are being explored, and that they offer some other capabilities and promises.
I'm putting you on the spot. Do you know anybody at INL that could talk to me about cutting edge nuclear technology?
Yeah, I know a couple people.
Okay.
I'll
I am dying to talk, because one, I think I drove through Arco last summer because we were going from Redfish to Rigby. My wife was playing in a water polo tournament.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Shout out Treasure Valley Water Polo. Anyway, they won the tournament, which is amazing. They beat this team that's the Tanner, I guess it was like the Tanner family, and their team is like the Tanner tradition. It's one family out of Utah that comes and just wrecks house. They all play water polo. And these are like a family with people ranging from like their 20s to their 50s. So there's some like behemoth water polo family in Utah named the Tanners, and they come up. Anyway, so the Treasure Valley Water Polo team that my wife was on beat them in the finals, which was great.
Great.
But we passed Arco on the way. And it was like, we kind of looked it up. It was like the first atomic city, super cool. And again, Senator Rich brought up, like we made groundbreaking nuclear technology here. And like Idaho has these cool little nuggets in its history. It's like, nuclear? Yeah, I did that. Like, no problem. I would love to explore more of that and understand it. So if you know anybody, I don't know.
I'll put you in contact with people. So it's great. They you can go out and look at the first reactor as you were driving by Arco. It's out there. It's a museum you can tour through, and they have great people that are all very excited to tell you about what they're doing at the lab.
Great. They're very excited.
They are.
We don't get visitors often. Please come and let me tell you.
Not that at all. Like they're doing cutting edge, unbelievable stuff. And they're not just doing nuclear, like they're doing biofuels. They're doing advanced batteries. They do all kinds of great stuff out there.
You got to help me. Because look, I'm a curious guy and I love science and I love I feel so many people get sucked into this destitute kind of sentiment around the world. You know, like we're filled with negative things all day long. But once you start scratching the surface, as I've had the pleasure to do with people in Idaho, it's like, oh my God, they're like these genius people working on these problems. Like, and I just feel so much better when I know I'm like, okay, you're 1,000 times smarter than me and you got this one locked down, like have at it. So
yeah, I'll put you in contact with people who can answer your questions about advanced reactor technologies.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Listen, I know it's a working day. Have we missed anything?
No, I just want to, I think it's really important to emphasize circling back to what the point of this conversation was, this speed council is what it's not and what it is. It's really important to emphasize that this is not an effort to rubber stamp anything that wants to come in here. It's not to open the floodgates for any developer who wants to come and reap our natural resources and ship them out without benefiting the state of Idaho. It's not. We have a responsibility to develop our natural resources and develop our energy and mineral resources to the benefit of our economy and our citizens. And we do that by streamlining permitting process and by being collaborative. Idaho has a rich history, whether it's water agreements or salmon or whatever it is, where we sit down and we talk and we work it out. And that's the purpose of this program. How do we make a process that's predictable and it's transparent and where the people have the opportunity to be heard and that they can be meaningfully engaged, and and when I say meaningfully engaged, that means what they say and what their opinions are matter to the efforts. Now, that's what this program is intended to do, establish a mechanism so that they can have that opportunity.
I love that. Listen, that's all. Like, I recognize as a citizen when my county or my city might be doing something. It's like, look, I get to weigh in. Will it always end up on my side? Absolutely not. But more times than not, when I'm dealing with people in Idaho, I have people that are like, all right, look, I know you don't like this. So what exactly do you not like? Like, let's get down to the core of the problem and let's see if there's a way. Like, I'm a big compromise guy. I'm a big like, hey, let's flush out the problem. Let's understand it. But again, the first step is believing in the system, that the system is even going to engage you. And then you come and bring the problem forward. And you're like, all right, this is a problem I have, and that's a really important piece. So I appreciate you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming in. I hope we can do it again. And please hook me up with the INL guys.
Will do. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.